The rain hits the window of Hadley's diner like it's trying to get in, and you're wiping down the same 4 booths you've wiped down every night for the last 6 years, because the rhythm of it is the only thing keeping your hands from shaking. It's 11:47 p.m. Junior, your 8-year-old daughter, is asleep in the back office on a cot you built out of 2 stacked chairs and a sleeping bag. Because daycare closed at 6 and there was nowhere else for her to go, you've got $4 in the register that isn't already owed to somebody. And in 41 days, if you don't find $11,000, the bank is going to take the only thing your father ever built with his hands. You don't know it yet, but the woman about to walk through that door, soaked to the bone, mascara running, heels broken, is going to change every single one of those numbers. If you've ever needed a reminder that kindness finds its way back to you, even when you've stopped expecting anything to, stay with this one to the end. And if stories like this mean something to you, hit subscribe, because there's a lot more where this came from. The bell above the door rings, cutting through the sound of the rain, and you look up expecting a trucker or a lost tourist. Instead, you see a woman maybe 30 years old, drenched, shivering, mud splattered up one side of a coat that cost more than your monthly diesel bill. She's holding one shoe in her hand because the heel snapped off the other one, somewhere out on Route 9. "Please," she says, and her voice cracks on the word. "My car, it just died, out on the county road. I don't have signal, I don't—" She stops, presses the back of her wrist to her mouth like she's trying to hold something in. You don't ask questions. You've been the person standing in a doorway with nothing before, and you know what it feels like when someone hesitates before helping you. So you don't hesitate. "Sit down," you say, pulling out the booth closest to the heater vent. "I'll get you something warm." Her name, she tells you, is Calliope. Just Calliope, no last name offered, and you don't push for one. You bring her the last of the vegetable soup, a towel from the kitchen, and the flannel jacket you keep on a hook for exactly this kind of night. She wraps her hands around the mug, like it's the only solid thing left in the world. And for a long moment, neither of you says anything. The rain keeps talking instead. You didn't grow up rich. You grew up in the apartment above this diner, watching your father flip eggs at 5 in the morning and count out tips at midnight, telling you that a diner isn't a business, it's a promise you make to a town, that no matter what happens outside, there's a light on and a seat at the counter for anybody who needs one. When he died, he left you the deed, a debt you didn't know about, and a town full of people who still remembered his name, fondly enough to keep coming back even when the roof leaked and the fryer broke down twice a year. You married young. Her name doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that she left when Junior was 2, when the diner started bleeding money and the nights got longer than the days. She said she didn't sign up to raise a kid in a kitchen that smelled like grease and disappointment. You didn't fight her on it. You just picked Junior up off the floor where she'd been playing with a spatula. And you kept going, because that's what your father would have done. Calliope watches you from across the counter as you refill the napkin, dispensers out of habit, and something about the quiet efficiency of your hands seems to catch her attention. "You do this every night?" she asks. "Every night the doors are open," you say, "which lately is fewer nights than I'd like." She doesn't ask what that means. She just nods like she understands. Something about running out of time that most people who wear coats like hers never have to learn. It's nearly 1 a.m. when the tow truck driver, your friend Otis, who you've called in favors for more times than either of you can count, pulls up outside and hauls her car into the lot. He takes one look under the hood and shakes his head. "Transmission's gone," he says. "Not tonight, not without parts he doesn't have." Calliope's shoulders drop the way shoulders drop when a person realizes the night isn't over. It's just getting started in a different kind of bad. She has no ride. No room booked in a town with exactly one motel that closed for renovations 2 months ago, and a phone with 4% battery and no signal. "You can stay in the back office," you tell her. It's not much, but it's warm, and it locks. She looks at you for a long moment, like she's trying to figure out the catch. There isn't one. You just know what it costs a person to ask for help, and you're not going to make her pay more for it than she already has. She sleeps in the office, on the cot next to Junior's, wrapped in your father's old flannel. In the morning, before the sun's even fully up, she's gone. No goodbye, just the flannel, folded neatly on the cot. And a folder, a slim leather folder, the kind that costs more than your weekly grocery bill, tucked half under the cushion, like it slipped out of a bag in the night. You almost don't open it, it's not yours. but there's a name on the outside tab printed in gold foil, and it stops you cold. Ashworth Holdings, Route 9 Land Acquisition. Confidential. You know that name. Everyone in this town knows that name, because Ashworth Holdings is the company that's been quietly buying up land along the county road for the last year. And Ashworth Holdings is also, as it turns out, the silent partner behind First Meridian Bank, the very bank holding the note on your diner. The one that sent you a letter 6 weeks ago about restructuring the loan terms, that somehow turned 11 months of steady payments into a default notice overnight. Your hands start shaking again, but this time it isn't exhaustion. Inside that folder are internal memos, spreadsheets, with your diner's address on them, a projected demolition timeline, and a name signed at the bottom of every authorization. Cyrus Pemberton, Regional Director, First Meridian Bank. Cyrus Pemberton, the same man who sat across from you 8 weeks ago, shook your hand, and told you with a straight face that the bank valued small businesses like yours, while quietly engineering a default clause that would let his company seize your land the moment the clock ran out. You trusted him. Your father had banked with that branch for 30 years. And this whole time, the man smiling at you across a desk had already signed off on bulldozing the building your daughter falls asleep in every night your babysitter falls through, so that Ashworth Holdings could put a gas station in a drive-through where your father's diner used to stand. You sit down hard in the booth Calliope had occupied hours before, the folder open in front of you, and for the first time in longer than you can remember, you let yourself feel the full weight of how close you are to losing everything. Junia wakes up around 7, rubbing her eyes, asking where the rain lady went, and you don't have an answer for her. You don't have an answer for anything right now. 41 days has just become a number that feels like it's already run out. That afternoon, while you're going through the motions of prep, chopping onions with hands that don't feel entirely like your own, a black car pulls into the lot. Not a tow truck, not a customer's pickup, a car so clean and quiet it looks like it drove straight out of a different life than the one Route 9 usually sees. Calliope steps out, dressed differently now, sharper, put together, the kind of composed that comes from practice rather than comfort. And for a second you almost don't recognize her without the mud and the broken heel. But her eyes find yours the same way they did the night before, searching, like she's checking whether you're someone she can trust twice. "I left something here," she says. "I need to know if you found it." You could lie. Some part of you, the tired, cornered part, thinks about it for half a second. But that's not who your father raised you to be. And it's not who you want Junia to grow up watching. "I found it," you say. "I read it. I know who you are now, or who your family is." She doesn't flinch. If anything, something in her posture straightens, like she's relieved the truth is finally sitting between you, instead of hiding in a folder. "My name is Calliope Ashworth," she says. "My grandfather built that company. My father runs it now, and I've spent the last 2 years trying to find proof of exactly what's in that folder, because I've heard rumors for months that someone on our board was running a scheme to manufacture defaults on small business loans through First Meridian, so we could acquire the land underneath them for pennies. I just didn't have the paperwork, until last night when I broke down 4 miles from the one piece of proof I needed, and the man who found me on the side of the road turned out to be one of the names on the list." You stare at her. "You knew. Last night, you knew who I was." "I didn't," she says, and something in her voice tells you she means it. "I found out at 4 this morning when I finally got signal, and looked up the diner's address against our acquisition list. I sat in a gas station parking lot and cried, because you just spent the whole night taking care of me without asking for a single thing in return. And I realized my own company had spent the whole year trying to take everything from you without you even knowing it was happening." The two of you stand there in the gravel lot while Junia watches from the window. And for a long moment, neither of you says anything at all, because there isn't a version of "I'm sorry" big enough for what she's describing. But sorry isn't what she came to offer. She came with a plan. Over the next 2 weeks, you watch things move faster than you ever thought a town this small could move. Calliope brings in her own legal team, not Ashworth's corporate lawyers, but a small independent firm she trusts. People who owe her favors from a different life before she inherited a company she never fully agreed to run the way her father runs it. They pull the loan documents. They pull Cyrus Pemberton's emails. They find the pattern, 7 other businesses along Route 9, all with the same restructured loan language, all sitting on land Ashworth Holdings had quietly targeted, all 6 weeks or less from default. Cyrus doesn't see it coming. He walks into what he thinks is a routine meeting with regional executives and finds Calliope sitting at the head of the table instead, a stack of printed emails in front of her with his name, highlighted in yellow on every page. You're not in that room, but Calliope tells you about it afterward, and there's something almost gentle in the way she describes the moment, his confidence. Cracked, not cruelty, just the quiet satisfaction of watching someone finally answer for what he thought no one would ever notice. He's terminated within the week, not just from the bank. Ashworth Holdings pulls its business from First Meridian entirely, and 2 other regional banks follow once the story breaks locally, because nobody wants their name next to his anymore. There's talk of criminal referral for loan fraud, though that part moves slower, the way those things always do. But the 8 businesses on that list, including yours, get something rarer than an apology. Their loans zeroed out, reissued at fair terms, backed personally by Calliope, who tells the board in no uncertain terms that Ashworth Holdings will make every single family on that list whole, or she'll make sure every reporter in the state knows exactly why. The diner doesn't just survive. It gets a new roof, courtesy of a woman who insists it isn't charity. Just correcting a mistake my family should never have let happen. Otis fixes her transmission for free, on principle, and refuses to hear otherwise. And Junia, who still asks about the rain lady, gets to watch her walk back through that door not as a stranger anymore, but as someone who sits in the same booth every few weeks, who remembers her name, who brought her a book about storms the last time she visited, because Junia told her once that she liked rain because it meant everyone had to slow down and be kind to each other for a little while. You don't know exactly what to call whatever this is between you and Calliope. It isn't loud or dramatic. It's quieter than that, closer to the way trust rebuilds after it's been broken. One visit, one late-night phone call, one Sunday breakfast at a time. She still runs a company bigger than anything you'll ever fully understand, and you still run a diner that smells like coffee and grease and 30 years of your father's memory. But somehow those 2 things fit together. Now, in a way neither of you expected the night the rain wouldn't stop. 6 months later, on the anniversary of the night she walked through your door, Calliope stands behind the counter with you during the dinner rush, badly refilling ketchup bottles, laughing at how much worse she is at this job than she assumed she'd be. Junia sits in the corner booth with her homework, occasionally shouting corrections about how the napkins actually go. Outside, the rain starts again, gentle this time, and nobody in the diner even looks up, because for the first time in longer than you can remember, the sound of rain against that window doesn't feel like something to survive. It feels like something to be grateful for. Sometimes the kindest thing you ever do is help a stranger with nothing to give back, and then sometimes that stranger is the very person who was going to save everything you were about to lose.